February 20th, 1943, north of Kasserine Pass, Tunisia. The official battle report would never capture what German tank commanders witnessed that morning. American Sherman tanks were executing maneuvers that defied everything Wehrmacht doctrine claimed was possible without visual signals. Through the dust and smoke of the North African battlefield, 5 Sherman tanks, separated by broken terrain with no line of sight between them, converged on German positions with timing that seemed almost supernatural. There were no flags, no flares, no dispatch riders racing between vehicles. Yet the Shermans moved as if controlled by a single mind, each tank covering the blind spots the others could not see, each crew acting with perfect awareness of the other's positions. Inside Panzer IVs equipped with few G5 radios, German commanders struggled to hear even their own superiors. Static overwhelmed their amplitude modulation systems. The 10-watt German transmitters, advanced by 1930 standards, could barely penetrate a few hundred meters when the tanks were moving. Most German tanks carried receivers only, unable to report what they saw or call for help. The Americans, however, were operating with technology the Germans did not even know existed: frequency modulation radios in every single tank, crystal-controlled precision, 25 watts of output power, and clarity that cut through engine roar and battlefield chaos like a scalpel. 8,000 miles from the assembly lines of Detroit, the most decisive technological advantage of World War II was revealing itself, not in armor thickness or gun caliber, but in invisible electromagnetic waves connecting American tank crews in ways the Wehrmacht had never imagined. America builds the first battlefield network. The transformation began on July 20, 1941, when the U.S. Army standardized the Signal Corps radio sets SCR 508, SCR 528, and SCR 538 for all medium tanks. While German forces advanced across the Soviet Union using tactics dependent on limited radio communication in command vehicles, American engineers at the Galvin Manufacturing Company, later Motorola, perfected FM technology that would render German systems obsolete. Key engineers included Daniel E. Noble, conceived the application of FM to armored vehicles; Henry Magnuski, principal RF engineer who solved the challenges of installing delicate electronics inside tank hulls. Their creation weighed 181 pounds and turned every Sherman tank into a node in the world's first true battlefield communication network. The BC-604 transmitter delivered 25 watts of power, 2.5 times the German FUG-5's output. Operating in the 20.0 to 27.9 MHz range, it offered 10 preset crystal-controlled channels, while the dual BC-603 receivers allowed commanders to monitor 2 nets simultaneously. The true revolution, however, was frequency modulation. Edwin Armstrong's FM technology, licensed to the EBA military, eliminated the static and interference that crippled AM systems. While German radios picked up every electrical discharge as noise, American FM sets delivered clear voice communication, even during artillery barrages. Operation Torch, radio superiority arrives in combat. On November 8, 1942, Operation Torch brought American armor to North Africa. The 2nd Armored Division landed with SCR 508 radios that would soon shock the Afrika Korps. Despite being the Wehrmacht's most experienced armored force, German units suffered severe communication limitations. In a 5-tank platoon, only 1 or 2 had a full transceiver. The rest carried receiver-only FUG-2 sets. They could hear orders but could not reply. Destroying command tanks crippled entire platoons. This vulnerability proved catastrophic against American forces, where every tank could assume command if needed. Kasserine Pass, the first proof. The Battle of Kasserine Pass, February 14, 1943, provided the first dramatic demonstration of American radio superiority. Although a tactical German victory, it revealed capabilities that stunned Wehrmacht observers. Scattered elements of the U.S. 1st Armored Division maintained coordination across 50 miles of chaotic battlefield. Tank crews who had never met coordinated attacks warned each other of threats and called for artillery support through crystal-clear FM transmissions. German signals intelligence intercepted American radio traffic and noted exceptional clarity, long-range communication, universal transmission capability in every tank. Meanwhile, German FUG-5 radios, operating on AM in the 27.0 to 33.3 MHz band, struggled to reach 2 to 3 km in ideal conditions, often dropping to a few hundred meters when tanks were moving. Every electrical spark became static, the system could not filter. Italy, FM dominates mountain warfare. When American armor entered Italy in September 1943, the mountainous terrain should have negated radio advantages. Instead, FM technology proved even more valuable. FM handled the multipath interference of mountain valleys far better than AM. Sherman's coordinated movements across ridgelines where German radios failed completely. Visual signals were impossible. Terrain blocked line of sight. The result, American armor maneuvered with a precision that German doctrine insisted required visual contact. Normandy, a new communication problem and a new solution. On June 6, 1944, Sherman tanks rolled off the landing craft at Normandy with SCR-508 radios that maintained contact with naval fire support, coordination impossible for German armor. But the Normandy hedgerow fighting revealed a deadly flaw. Tank radios could not communicate with infantry radios. Tank radios, SCR-508, 20.027.9 mm. Infantry radios, SCR-300, 40.048.00 MHz. The result was deadly. German infantry with Panzerfausts could ambush American tanks while U.S. infantry nearby had no direct way to warn them. America solved the problem within weeks. Tank crews welded EE-8 field telephones inside ammunition boxes on the rear hull, wired directly into the intercom. By Operation Cobra in late July, tank infantry cooperation had been transformed. Operation Cobra, the full potential revealed. From July 25 to 30, 1944, Operation Cobra demonstrated the full power of American radio superiority. Major General Edward H. Brooks's 2nd Armored Division coordinated over 200 Sherman tanks via an integrated FM network. German defenders from Panzerlehr faced an enemy that seemed to possess impossible awareness. Tanks responded instantly to reports from miles away. Artillery arrived within minutes. Units maneuvered fluidly, despite chaotic terrain. Panzerlehr, once Germany's finest armored division, was crippled by communication poverty. Most tanks operated without radios, relying on visual signals in hedgerows where visibility rarely exceeded 100 meters. The great irony: Germany invented. This Germany had pioneered armored radio communication. Heinz Guderian, architect of the Blitzkrieg, had demanded radios in tanks since the 1920s. His 1937 book Achtung, Panzer emphasized communication as essential to armored warfare. But by 1943, German industry could not produce the radios his doctrine required. Production numbers told the story. 1943, Germany built 5,700 medium tanks. Fewer than 2,000 FUG transceivers were produced. Most went to command vehicles. Regular tanks entered battle-deaf and mute. Soviet reality and American contrast. The USSR faced even worse communication shortages. Most T-34s entered combat with no radios at all. Coordination relied on flags and pre-battle planning, devastating against German forces in 1941. Lend-Lease radios helped, but even by 1945, only that 25% of Soviet tanks carried radios. The contrast was absolute. Soviet tanks with radios were 25%, German tanks with radios 40–60%, only command tanks fully equipped. American tanks with radios 100%. Motorola and the Industrial Miracle. Motorola's Chicago factory became a symbol of American industrial mobilization. Before the war, the company built car radios. Converting to military production required complete restructuring. Each SCR-508 required 2,048 components, 4v4 capacitors, 385 resistors, temperature-stable crystal oscillators. At shock-resistant housings, precision wiring tolerances, production numbers, 1942, 3,800 units, 1943, 11,400 units, 1944, 24,000 units, total wartime production, 50,000 plus tank radio systems. This ensured all 49 themed 3D4 Sherman tanks received sophisticated FM radios, an achievement no other nation matched. Technical advantages that changed warfare. The SCR 508 offered more than FM clarity. Crystal stability prevented drift. Dual receiver setup enabled multi-channel monitoring. BC 606 intercom linked all crew members. Noise-canceling throat mics allowed communication under fire. Stable power supply filtered electrical interference. German tanks, many lacking intercoms, relied on shouting or physical taps. Their radios drew power directly from vehicle systems, meaning every electrical spark became static. Radio superiority in action, Aracourt. During the Battle of Aracourt in September 1944, the U.S. 4th Armored Division faced multiple German panzer brigades equipped with superior Panther tanks. The Germans had every technical advantage, except communication. American radio coordination proved decisive. Every Sherman could report enemy positions instantly. Tank destroyers received real-time targeting data. Artillery observers in Sherman command tanks called in deadly barrages within minutes. Over 3 weeks, the 4th Armored Division destroyed 281 German armored vehicles, losing only 41 Shermans, a 7-1 kill ratio that defied technical expectations. Throughout the war, German intelligence never fully understood the significance of American communication superiority. Combat reports frequently noted American coordination, but they attributed it to training rather than technology. A captured German intelligence assessment from September 1944 stated, "American tank units demonstrate good radio discipline and coordination. This appears to result from extensive training and rigid communication procedures." The report completely missed the technological advantage. German tactics never adapted to American capabilities. They continued targeting what they assumed were command tanks based on antenna configurations, not realizing that every Sherman could coordinate battlefield responses. They planned ambushes, assuming American tanks would lose coordination once separated, not understanding that radio contact maintained unit cohesion regardless of visual contact. March 1945, the Rhine. As American forces approached the Rhine, their communication superiority reached its peak. The capture of the Remagen Bridge demonstrated the unprecedented speed of American command and control. When the 9th Armored Division discovered the Ludendorff Bridge intact, radio reports reached 1st Army headquarters within minutes. Within an hour, divisions across the front were maneuvering to exploit the opportunity. German forces, dependent on telephone lines that American aircraft had systematically destroyed, could not respond with comparable speed. American radio coordination created an impenetrable defense of the bridgehead. Tank platoons from different battalions integrated seamlessly, coordinating their fire through radio networks. German counterattacks, poorly coordinated due to communication failures, arrived piecemeal and were destroyed in detail. April 1945, the Ruhr Pocket. The encirclement of the Ruhr Pocket demonstrated the full culmination of American communication superiority. Armored columns from the 1st and 9th Armies coordinated a complex double envelopment entirely through radio communication. Inside the pocket, 325,000 German troops found themselves trapped, partly because their communications had collapsed. American fighter bombers, guided by radio-equipped forward air controllers, systematically destroyed German communication nodes. Wehrmacht units lost contact with higher headquarters and even with adjacent units. Field Marshal Walter Model's final messages before total communication failure revealed the chaos. No contact with adjacent units, no communication with higher headquarters. Fighting continues, but coordination impossible. Psychological impact. American radio superiority profoundly affected the psychological experience of tank warfare. American crews fought with the knowledge that they were never alone. Even when physically isolated, they remained connected through radio waves. German tank crews experienced the opposite, profound isolation. Unable to communicate, they fought individual battles within larger engagements. Otto Carius, one of Germany's most successful tank commanders, wrote in Tigers in the Mud about the difficulties caused by limited communications, though even he underestimated the scale of the communication gap. Strategic implications. American advances in 1944–45 maintained relentless tempo partly because of radio coordination that German forces simply could not match. The Third Army's race across France depended on radio networks that maintained command and control across hundreds of miles. German commanders consistently underestimated American abilities because they could not conceive of the communication superiority the Americans possessed. Heinz Guderian, as Inspector General of Armored Troops, recognized the problem but could not solve it. In a memorandum dated December 1944, he admitted that American coordination negated German advantages in tank quality. Post-war evaluations. After Germany's surrender, American technical intelligence teams examined captured equipment. Their findings confirmed what combat experience had already shown. German tanks often possessed superior armor and armament, but catastrophically inferior communications. U.S. Army Technical Intelligence Report No. 176 concluded, German tank communications equipment was approximately 5 years behind American systems. Soviet evaluators reached the same conclusion. Given access to captured German equipment, they chose to copy American radio designs, not German ones, for their post-war development. Bomb production and deployment comparison. American radio production, SCR 508, 528, 538, over 50,000 units, installed in 49,324 Sherman tanks, deployment rate, 100%, transmission power, 25 watts, frequency stability, crystal controlled plus 0.01%, range moving, 7 miles, range stationary, 10-15 miles, German radio production, FUG-5 transceivers, approximately 6,000 units, medium-heavy tanks produced, power 12,000, full transceiver deployment rate, 20%, transmission power, 10 watts, frequency drift, plus 1%, range moving, 0.5 to 1 mile, range stationary, 2 to 3 miles, communication, effectiveness, American average time to request artillery fire, 3 to 5 minutes, German average, 15 to 30 minutes, American tanks with full coordination, 100%, German tanks with full communication, 20%. Counter legacy. The radio superiority of the Sherman tank established principles that shape armored warfare today. Modern main battle tanks carry communication suites that trace their lineage directly to the SCR 508, not in analog circuitry, but in the principles of universal deployment and reliable coordination. The rebuilt post-war German Bundeswehr internalized this lesson. Every Leopard tank was equipped with comprehensive communication systems. A Bundeswehr training manual stated, "The defeat of superior German tanks by inferior American vehicles with superior radios teaches that information. Dominance outweighs platform superiority." Modern conflicts prove this again and again. 1991 Gulf War. Coalition forces with superior communications destroyed Iraqi forces equipped with individually superior tanks but inferior radios. 2003 Iraq War. Network-centric warfare once again overwhelmed platform-centric forces. Final analysis. American Sherman tank radio superiority represents a victory in the electromagnetic spectrum, one more decisive than advantages in armor or firepower. German tank crews fought partially blind to this revolution, discovering too late that every Sherman tank was not just a fighting vehicle, but a node in history's first battlefield network. The SCR 508 transformed the M4 Sherman from an adequate medium tank into part of a larger weapon system, one that included every other American tank on the battlefield. The invisible web of radio communication created a collective intelligence German tanks could not match. This network proved more decisive than any improvement in armor or firepower. Field Marshal Wilhelm Keitel's alleged remark at Germany's surrender captured the truth. whether authentic or apocryphal. We knew how to build better tanks, but you knew how to make them work together. By war's end, Germany understood too late that the United States had not built 49,324 tanks. They had built 49,324 connected tanks. The revolution in warfare that historians associate with modern network-centric operations began in 1942 when the first Sherman with an SCR 508 rolled into combat. From that moment onward, connection meant survival. Isolation meant defeat. German troops learned this reality across deserts, mountains, forests, and cities, discovering that the Americans possessed not only numerical strength, but technological superiority in the domain that mattered most, the ability to fight as one.